Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning, Alan. Good morning to everyone. Okay, so we are in the bottom of Vav and Beis. Yesterday, we were talking about the idea of the illegal kamitza that was done. And we said that if it was kamatz, according to one opinion, if you do the kamitza, and even if you put it in kidesh, even if you put it into another kli sharis, so you're taking the kamitza out, you're putting it into another kli sharis, according to some, you could still fix it. And according to others, if you take it out and you put it into the second kli sharis, now you can no longer fix it. And we asked Akasha on the opinion that says that if you take it out and you put it into another kli sharis, then you can no longer fix it. If you don't put it into another kli sharis, then you can still fix it. And we said that opinion doesn't seem to make any sense, because what do they hold? If they hold that a kamitza is part of the avoda, so then if it's done by an illegal person, who cares whether you're putting it into another kli sharis or not? As soon as you do the kamitza, it should be bad. And if the kamitza that's done by an illegal person is nothing, so then who cares if you go ahead and put it into a second kli sharis? It shouldn't affect anything. So MENACHOS, I understand if you tell me that if you go ahead and you take the kamitza and you put it in, you could still use it. I understand that. But if you tell me that you can only use it if you don't put it in, then it doesn't make any sense. If I take it out by a psul and I put it on the side, on the floor, and I don't put it into the second kli sharis, then I can use it. That opinion makes no sense. So the Gemara says, skip the next 5 words. Rashi clearly doesn't have that gear. So Zayin Amud Aleph. So Rav Nachman said on the bottom, La'olam avodahi. No, it's an avoda, but it's not full until you put it into the kli. So the kamitza is an avoda, and therefore, according to that opinion, you take it out. If you put it into the kli, then you finish the avoda, and now it's pasul, because an illegal guy did it. If you don't put it into the kli, then it's not a problem. Again, according to the other opinion, even if you put it into the kli, you could still fix it. Now the Gemara asks a very interesting question. The Gemara says that, let's assume that you didn't put it into the kli, right? So what did you do? You took it out, according to this opinion. Again, according to the other opinion, even if you put it into the second. We have 2 kli sharises. We have the original kli, which the korban mincha is in, and now we're talking about when you take out the komets, putting it into another kli sharis. So according to the opinion who says you could always fix it, even if you put it into the other kli sharis, we're not really discussing that right now. You put it into the other kli sharis, you could still fix it, and then a kohen can come along and do the avoda. But according to this opinion, what's happening? We're saying that if you take out the komets, if you put it into the kli sharis, you're done. You ruined it. But let's say you don't put it into the kli sharis. So now what do we say you could do according to this opinion? According to everyone, even this opinion, you can now fix it. Says the Gemara, only the Gemara can ask this type of question. When you put it back into the kli sharis, you're putting it into a kli sharis. So yes, you're not putting it into the new kli sharis, but you're putting it back into the original. Because what's happening here again, according to this opinion, this guy's taking it, the illegal guy, he's not putting it into the kli sharis because he would ruin it. So he's putting it down on the floor, he's holding it in his hands. So what do we say to him? Well, if you haven't put it into the new kli sharis, you can return it to the original one. But when he returns it to the original one, he's putting it into a kli sharis. And therefore he's holding it in his hand. Now he puts it into the original one and we say, okay, now a kosher kohen come do it. But by definition, when he put it back, he was putting it into a kli sharis, he was finishing the avoda. Once it's done with the psul, he should ruin everything. That's the Gemara's question. To its original place, tikdosh v'lifsel. Amar Rav Yochanan, it must be zos omeres kli sharis ein mekachin ela midas. It must be that a kli sharis is mekadesh, and i.e. will be kadosh and will ruin it only midas. And when this guy's putting it back, he's not putting it back l'shem yichud kusha brichu, that it should be good. He's putting it back so that the next guy can come and do it. Says Gemara hamidas mekachin. That implies that if he would put it back with the intention to put it back and finish avoda, he would be mekadesh the original stuff and he would ruin everything. But Rabbi Yochanan says that if a pasul guy does something, we ignore everything he does. But this implies that if the pasul guy would actually put it back with the intention to finish the avoda, he would ruin everything. Says the Gemara, Amar le ein mekachin li karev, mekachin li pasul. No, when we say that a guy cannot be mekadesh, a pasul guy, he can't be mekadesh it in order to make it fit for avoda. But he could be mekadesh it to make it pasul. So again, it comes out when the pasul guy takes it out, he goes like this. Now, again, if he has no das, if it's shalomi das, he just puts it back, so then fine, there's nothing to talk about. But if he has das, if he has specific das, so then it's going to be a problem, he's going to ruin it. Klisharis emekachin elami das. If he has das to ruin it, he's going to ruin it. But again, the stam guy who's pasul is going to take it out, they're going to say, so what are you doing, you're pasul? He'll put it back, he has no das to ruin it. If he has no das to ruin it, it's not going to be ruined.
Does he have to say something?
No, he's just putting it back.
No, I mean the guy that's got das.
Well, the guy that has das, I don't know, usually not. Usually he just has intention that he wants to ruin it, or he wants this to be part of the avoda, and then he'll ruin it.
Why wouldn't the intention be to mekadosh it? Why wouldn't the intention be that someone will come along and make it good?
Because again, what's happening here? This guy is a psul, he takes it out,
Right.
and now he's in the process of putting it into another kli. He's in the process of doing the thing, and we say to him, wait, you're a zar. Wait, there's something wrong with you. He says, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, I didn't realize. So now he puts it back into things. So we said as long as he doesn't put it back with the intention to finish the avoda, then it's going to be fine. That's going to be shalom midas. If he has intention to finish the avoda as a psul, then he can ruin the entire thing. That's what we said. But stam, he's not going to have das to ruin it. Why would he? If assuming he's not a bad guy, he's going to just say, oh, I didn't realize. He's going to put it back into the original pan, and now we'll be able to have a real kohen, a guy who's kosher, be able to come along and do the entire process. Says the Gemara, Amar of Amram, Rav Amram Amar, Kigon Sheikh Zero Lebisa Gedusha. What happened here? Rav Amram is saying that even if you say that Shalomi Das could be a problem, means, let's say you like the other opinion. If it has to have Das, so we just assume the guy's a good guy, he puts it back, he doesn't have Das to ruin it, and it's fine. But let's say you hold like the opinion that says Shalomi Das is a problem. That means that if this guy, when he puts it back, is finishing, quote unquote, one part of the avoda, maybe he's going to ruin it. Is there a way to construct the case where even if the guy doesn't need to have Das to ruin it, where he can put it back and still not ruin it? Is there a way to construct the case? The Gemara says yes, you can construct the case. What happened? He puts it back onto the top of the heap of the pile. It means, let's imagine that you had the mincha here, the korban mincha, and it wasn't, right, you bake a cake, or it just was flour in a cake, and it wasn't, you just assume that the thing is filled with flour and it's not going over the top. But let's say it was a heap. So let's say he took out some of the kamitza, and we'll talk about exactly the mitzias in 1 second. He took out part of the kamitza over here, right? He takes out the kamitza, and he's about to put it in. We say, what are you doing? You're a puzzle. He puts it back. Now, if you put it into the cavity of the kli, then if you don't need das, he can ruin it. According to, within that opinion, you don't need das. But if he puts it on the heap that's outside of the kli, he hasn't put it into the korban mincha, he hasn't put it into the actual kli. If it's on top of the heap, then he hasn't ruined anything, even if you don't need to have das. That's really what the Gemara says. It's not really in the kli shares now. Lebisa gedusha umekame techi kamatz. So the Gemara says, I understand. If that's true and there was so much flour, so how did he do kamitza in the first place? If you're telling me that he put it back on top of the heap of, that means that he took it from the heap. Well, if you take it from the heap, just like you could put it back on the heap, that means you can't take it from the heap, because that means that when he took it originally, he wasn't taking it from inside the kli. If he was taking it just from the top of the kli, the heap, he wasn't taking it from the kli shares. If he wasn't taking it from the kli shares, then it wasn't ever kosher in the first place. Says the Gemara, Elakagon sheich zira lebisa tefufa. He puts it back into this kli, which was tefufa, which was rounded. What does that mean? Rashi says, what did he do? He put his hand in the middle. It means when he took it out, he stuck his hand down in the middle, made a hole, and took out from inside the kli. When he put it back, he didn't put it back where he had taken it from. He put it on the outside, on the heap, and therefore he took it out from in the kli and put it back on top of the kli, which wasn't inside.
The whole thing is mitzvah to the solar sets in.
No, so it sounds like it's not mitzvah. It sounds like the part that's above is considered to be separate.
How big is this kli?
I don't know exactly. Doesn't sound like it's too big. Doesn't sound like it's too big.
Difficult to take it out from inside the kli and then somehow.
Again, it depends how big it is. If you have a regular sized bowl, I mean, you can go in the middle and then you have a heap around it. Says the Gemara, Avid leguma. Trufa, v'chevan de kamitz le avid leguma. When he did the kamitz, he made a hole in the middle. Ki mahader legavai demana kamahadule. Says the Gemara, but when he put it back, now he's putting it back into the interior. If he's putting it back into the hole, so now he's ruining it, like we said, because we're within the opinion that you don't need das. Ki mahadule manach le adafna demana umanid le umagid le v'nafal memela denase k'moshe chzira kof. What's a kof? A monkey. So says, I think maybe the Gemara is struggling with the doctor's question, that if it's true he's going to put it on the outside, it's going to fall over. So what does he do? He takes it from the middle. Now that was a kosher kamitza, but he's a puzzle. So now he needs to put it back. So where does he put it back? He puts it on the brim, on the part that's heaped up. Then he shakes it a little bit, and it falls on its own back into the hole. Then it's as if a monkey did it. If a monkey did it, then there's no problems. I wonder if this is the source. There was one of the Rosh Yeshiva at YU. They once asked him, okay, I can do it on tape. They once asked him about some type of people reading ksuvas. They wanted to know who's allowed to read a ksuva. He's not. He says, no, even a kof can read a ksuva. Even a monkey can read a ksuva. So he says, no. Okay, but I think maybe that's where he got it from, the kof over here. Okay, says the Gemara, Amalei Rabbi Yirmiyah le Reb Zera. Rabbi Yirmiyah said to Reb Zera. V'lokma kigon she'echziru lekli hamunach al gabe karka. Now the Gemara says that, let's have another case. Maybe when he put it back to a kli that was munach al gabe karka. That means, why don't we set up the case? We're trying to figure out a case where he put it back, but he didn't put it back into the original kli shares. Because if you put it back into the original kli shares, and you don't need das, like we're saying within this opinion, then you ruin it. So maybe when he put it back, the kli shares that he had taken it from was on the floor. Who cares if it was on the floor? Maybe if it was on the floor, then that's not considered to be a kli sharis anymore. So what do we learn from here? The fact that we didn't set up the case as saying, oh, he put it back and it was on the floor, shows that even if it was on the floor, it wouldn't be any different. If it's on the floor, if it's on the table, if it's being held, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. If it's on the floor, it's still considered to be a kli sharis. There was a havamina that if it wasn't being held by a kohen, it wouldn't be a real kli sharis, as we're going to see in just a second. You might think that the kohen has to hold the kli sharis in order to make it into a vessel. We're going to compare it to like when you do the kabbalah of the dam. We know that when the blood is shechted, that when the animal is shechted, the blood needs to come into a utensil that's being held by a kohen. If it's just sitting on the floor and it runs into the utensil, it's pasul. So you might think over here that, what are we trying to do? We're trying to figure out, now the guy's holding it in his hand, how do we put it back in the original kli sharis without him ruining the entire thing? So the suggestion could have been, says the Gemara, he could have said, just put the kli sharis on the floor. Now it loses the name of a kli sharis, of a holy utensil, and then put it back. The fact that Gemara didn't suggest that shows that even if it had been on the floor, it would have still ruined it, and therefore you see that a kli sharis, by definition, doesn't have to be held in the hand. Says the Gemara, it's interesting. You touched upon a question that we had in the base medrash. An interesting story. Rav Abimi was learning Meseches Menachos at Rav Chisda's house. Rav Abimi be Rav Chisda Tani, the Gemara asked parenthetically, Abimi was learning at Rav Chisda's house? I don't understand. Abimi was the rabbi. Rav Chisda was the Talmud. So why is he going to the Talmud's house? V'amar Rav Chisda, we know from elsewhere that Rav Chisda said, Kulpi tavi bali me'avimi ala dehashmaisa, that I got hit many times. Too bad we don't pass like this. I got hit many times by my Rebbe. Why? Over the following shmaisa that we were talking about. Bala Hachar is, there's a Mishnah which says that when the Yasom passes, that when the father passes away, if we're going to sell the Yasom's property, in order to give him money, you have to make announcements. Why do you have to make announcements? You want to make sure he gets the best price. You want to make sure that the Yasom gets the best price. So when you come to make announcements, you have two choices. Either you can do it with Suf and Lamed Yom, either you can announce it every day in shul for 30 days, or when the most amount of people come on Monday and Thursday, Sheni v'chamishi samach yomi, or you do 60 days, I don't know if it's 60 days total or 60 Sundays and Thursdays. It sounds like you have to do either 30 days total or 60 days of Monday and Thursday in order to get the word out, either one. And again, Avimi was arguing with his Rebbe, Rav Chisda was arguing with his Rebbe Avimi, but you clearly see, again, for our purposes, that Avimi was the student and Rav Chisda was the Rebbe. So why, that Avimi was the Rebbe and Rav Chisda was the student, so why is Avimi going to Rav Chisda's house? Avimi mesechta is akra leiva asa kamed Rav Chisda leid kure gamrei. Avimi had forgotten what he taught and what he had learned by Menachos, and he went to his student to remind him what he learned. So why didn't they send to Rav Chisda and tell him to come to his Rebbe? His Rebbe needs to ask him some questions. Fascinating. Savar hachi mistayeya mil satvei. Rashi says, Mishum yagati umatzati. He figured that if he goes to his student, he'll get the schar of yagati umatzati. We know that you don't believe somebody unless he says yagati umatzati, that I went ahead. If he says matzati without yagati, we don't believe him. He went ahead and he had to put in the effort. So he wanted to put in the effort because he knew that he had an extra sense of siyata d'shmaya, Kadosh Baruch Hu would help him. So even though, yes, it would have been right for the Talmud to come to the Rebbe, since he wanted to understand, the Rebbe really wanted to understand, he figured if he goes to the Talmud, Hashem will help him better understand. Back to our Gemara. Paga be Rav Nachman, Amar le, Ketzar Komsin. So Rav Nachman says, how do you do the Kemitza? Amar le mi klizeh, from this kli. That means now we're going back to this discussion, are you allowed to do the Kemitza? So we assume from now that when it's on the floor, it's still considered to be a regular kli sharis. So now we're just going to discuss this a little bit more. Can you do the Kemitza from a kli sharis on the floor? And can you put the Kemitza into a kli sharis that's on the floor? Says the Gemara, Amar le mi klizeh. So Rav Nachman, so he said to him, how do you do the komsin? So it sounds like he said, Mikliza, you can do it from the one on the floor. So now the Gemara is suggesting that no, you can't do it from a kli sharis on the floor. And when it says that you can take it from this kli, it meant the kli that the Kohen is holding in his hand. Says the Gemara, Ketan mekachin es hakometz. So if you're telling me that the Kohen has to be holding it, so now the question is, Rav Nachman asks another question. So now you just told me, again, we don't necessarily pass it, we just assume the other way, that you can do it from the floor. But according to this opinion, you have to take out the kometz from a mincha that's being held by a Kohen. Now his next question of Nachman is, okay, now I took it out from a kometz, I took it out from a mincha that was being held by a Kohen. When I put it now, again, we said, when you take out the kometz, you put it into another kli sharis. Does that second kli sharis have to be held by a Kohen as well, or just the original kli sharis?
Hustle guys that are doing this, are we still back at the...
No. We're not dealing with puzzle guys anymore.
These are not Kohen.
We're dealing with regular Kohanim. We're asking a regular Kohen who's doing the kamitza. So according to this opinion, you have to have one Kohen holding it and one Kohen doing the kamitza. Now the question is, when this guy has the kamitza in his hand, does he have to put it into a kli sharis that another Kohen is holding, or can he just put it into a kli sharis? We're talking about two Kohanim. We're talking about three people. One Kohen holding, we'll see. One Kohen holding this one, maybe one Kohen holding this one, and one guy transferring it in between.
Yeah, one.
How many coins does it take?
How many coins? We'll see in a second.
One empty.
So, one empty over here, right?
Yeah.
And one full one. Great.
So
Ketzan mekachin es hakometz. So how do you mekadesh? It says menachos, but you can switch it to kometz. How do you be mekadesh this kometz? No joking, please. Amar le no na lekli zeh. You put it to this kli. Says the Gemara, and he seems to be implying that it's on the karka. So again, within this opinion, according to the first opinion, it sounds like you could take it from a kli on the floor and put it into a kli on the floor. According to this opinion, you take it from a kli being held by one kohen into an empty kli that's being held by another kohen. Says the Gemara, Amar leim ken hutzrachsa gimel kohanim. You need three kohanim, one to hold this kli, one to hold this kli, and one to do the actual kamitza. And how could it be that you need three? Amar le, what do you mean three is nothing? Utehitzricha yud gimel l'tamid. They needed 13 to do the korban tamid, so 3 is not such a big deal. But in Echanami, they had 3 doing it. Says Gemara, Eisvei, how could it be that they had 3? Ze'aklal, you see the following Mishnah, and the Mishnah is going to point out, or the Gemara is going to point out, that in this Mishnah, you have all the jobs that were done during the Kmitah, and you're not going to see any mention of any Kohanim holding the Kli Sharis. So what would happen? Kol HaKometz, the guy who does the Kmitza, or V'nosein B'Kli, putting it into the Kli, or HaMolech, the one that then brings it to the Mizbeach, or HaMakdir, Lecho Davar Shadarko Lecho, and this Mishnah is talking about that any of these guys who do the Kmitza, who walk it to the Mizbeach, who burn it, any of these guys who have the wrong intentions, i.e. Pigul, can ruin the Korban. But what do you notice? V'ilu Magbia Lo Ketani. It doesn't mention anything about Kohanim holding the Kli Sharis. So if it was true that you need to have one Kohen holding this Kli Sharis and one Kohen holding this one into which the Kometz is going, it should have mentioned that if they have the wrong intention when they're holding the Kli Sharis, or this guy has the wrong intention when he's holding the Kli Sharis, he should ruin it in Pigul. Why does it not mention? It must be that you don't need to have Kohanim holding the Kli Sharis and they can be on the floor. Says the Gemara, no. Tana Seder Avodos Nakivelo Seder Kohanim. No, it's mentioning the real jobs. The parts that are part of the avodah, not just. It's not mentioning all the kohanim that happen to be standing around. Okay, this guy, new. It's not the most attractive job. He's holding the kli sharis. He's there. He's doing it. But the Mishnah is not going to mention it. Says the Gemara. That's nice. But we have another question. Bo minei rindu Rav Sheshes. Mao likmots mikli shagabe karka. Can you take from a kli that's on gabe karka? Malay poke chazi ma'avdin lagav. What are you asking me for? Go to the base HaMikdash and see what they do. Now, he wasn't living at the time of the base HaMikdash, but what he meant was go look in the Gemara or go look and talk to people who were there and figure out what they did in the base HaMikdash. Says the Gemara, Arba Kohanim Nechlasin. No, passed on. Arba Kohanim Nechlasin. The Gemara is going to do something very interesting now. They're going to try to answer this question about whether a Kohanim have to be holding the Kli Shares by, again, we're talking about Kli Shares that you're taking from the Kli Shares you're putting into. Doesn't seem to be making a difference between them. And we're going to answer it by comparing it to the Lechem Apanim, the showbread that was switched every single Shabbos. And again, as I always reiterate, the beauty of DAF Yomi is that you don't have to get every single back and forth, but you get the general concepts every single day. You grab 2 or 3 things. Now we're going to learn a little bit about the Lechem Apanim. And if we don't know what it is, so then we get to learn a little bit about it today. Arba Kohanim Nechnasim. Shnayim biyadam beis sedarim, ushnayim biyadam shnei bezikin. Ve'arba mekadmin lifneim, shnayim lito shnei sedarim, ubeis lito beis bezikin. Very interesting. There were 8 Kohanim involved every Shabbos morning, 2 short of a minyan. 8 Kohanim involved with the changing of the Lechem Apanim. You had one Kohen carrying 6 loaves, the new 6 loaves. You had another Kohen carrying the new 6 loaves. So you got 6 and 6 is 12. You have one Kohen carrying the new Levona, the new incense. You have another Kohen carrying the other new incense, one for each of the 6 loaves. So now you got 4 Kohanim. And what are the 4 Kohanim in front of them doing? One to take off the 6 loaves, one to take off the 6 loaves, one to take off 1 spoon of Levona, one to take off the other spoon of Levona. So you have 8 Kohanim involved in the switching of the guard every single Shabbos. Ve'ilu magbiyas hashulchan lo ketani. And there's no mention of anybody picking up the table when they're switching the lechem apanim and taking the lavona. Who cares about the table of the lechem apanim? So Rashi says something very interesting. Rashi says, let's just read this top Rashi. Ve'ilu magbia lo ketani on the left. Shehei acher magbia hashulchan b'shas siluk habazikin. Alma miklisha al karka yisiluk bezikin. The table wasn't being lifted up. So that means that they took the lavona off of a table that was on the ground. Who cares? What is that? It's very nice, but what does it have to do with us? Uvezikin matirin es halachem. Because they're going to make a comparison between the lavona, the spoons of incense, and the komets that we took out of the mincha. Because just like the spoon is what enables you to eat the lechem apanim, the komets enables you to eat the mincha. Okay, that's not enough. What's the deeper thing? Shkikomet shematir es mincha, the komets mikre askara. Because in the Torah, both of them are called an askara. So it's like a zeras hakasov between the zikim, between the incense and the komet. And just like we see that the incense didn't need to be taken from a table or put on a table that was being lifted up, so too, we can say that the komets didn't have to be taken from or put into a table that was lifted up. Askara is like an askara, like a reminder. Askara. So v'ilo ma'biyas hashochan lo ketani. Says the Gemara, lav amars hatam seder avodas nakad hachanami seder avodas agas. Who cares? Who cares that we didn't mention the lifting of the table? You just told me in the other brayso so that we don't mention all the jobs. So maybe there was actually somebody lifting up the table and we just don't mention it. Says the Gemara, you can't compare the two. Mi dummy. Hasan lo nachas l'minyan dekonim. Hacha nachas l'minyan dekonim. No, in the first brayso where it didn't mention, it was just mentioning a few things. The guy who's doing the komets, the guy who's doing the haktara, the guy who's doing the halacha. But it didn't go to mention every single kohanim. Here it goes out of its way. 4 kohanim doing this, and 4 kohanim doing this, and 2 kohanim doing this, and 1 kohen doing this, and 1 kohen doing this. So once you're mentioning all the kohanim, so mention the guy who's holding the table, or the 2 guys that are holding the table. Says a Gemara, im isa, at 8 total, im isa lisnei magbia. If it was true, it should have mentioned magbia. Ela shmamina komsim miklisha gabi karka shmamina. No, it must be that there was nobody holding the table, or would have mentioned it, and therefore you see that you can actually take a kometz from a kli that was on the karka, and therefore, again, you can take the lechem apanim, or you can take the lavona from the table that was on the karka, and therefore you can take the kometz from a kli that was on the karka. Amarava, pshita li, kometz miklisha gabi karka, shekain matzinu betzilok bezikin. Mekacha mincha beklisha gabi karka shematzinu betzidor bezikin. Bari Rava kiddush kometz mai. Rava asked an interesting question. I mean, think about it for a second from the lechem apanim. What happened by the lechem apanim? You were taking the lavona off. What was that the equivalent to? That was the equivalent of taking the komets out of the kli. So when you bring the mincha from your house and you put it into the kli could be on the floor. And we're comparing it to the case of the lechem apanim. So just like by the lechem apanim, when you remove the spoon from last week and you take it out, it could be which now allows you again to eat the lechem apanim. So now when you take out the komets, that's the equivalent. But there's one step missing. By Rava, kiddush kometz mai. There's one step that applies to the komets that doesn't apply to the lechem apanim. Because what do you do with that old lavona from last week from the lechem apanim? Where do you then take it when you take it off the table? What do you do with it? You burn it. What do you do with the komets when you take it out of this klisharis? You put it into another klisharis. So very nice, you've proven to me that the first klisharis doesn't have to be held by a kohen, but you have no precedent to explain to me whether the second klisharis needs to be held by a kohen or not. Because there was no second klisharis by a lechem apanim. By lechem apanim, you took the thing off and you burnt it. Here you're taking the komets and you're putting it into another klisharis. Does that second klisharis have to be held by a kohen or not? I understand the first one doesn't have to be held by a kohen. That's we have a precedent from lechem apanim. But does the second klisharis have to be held by a kohen? Says the Gemara, mi mincha yalfina la o mi dam yalfina la. We can either learn from a korban mincha or we can learn from dam. If we learn from a korban mincha, that means from the beginning step. In the beginning step, we just said by korban mincha, it doesn't have to be held by a kohen. Therefore, when you put it into the second klisharis, it doesn't have to be held by a kohen either. Or you can learn from a dam. What's the dam? Well, dam, we just said that when you do the Kabbalah of the dam, after you do the shechita, it needs to be held by a kohen. What does it have to do? Why would we compare it to dam? So Rashi points out, very interesting Rashi. Yes?
I'm just going to ask, if you're comparing a table to this klisharis, is it possible that the klisharis is actually an elongated structure?
Could be.
Because
maybe.
Otherwise, if there's no comparison. A table, why would you have to lift it? Where a kli, if it's just a bowl, would be very inconvenient to be on the ground.
It could be, maybe. I'm not sure. But it could be. It's an interesting point. So it says the Gemara midam on the left side Rashi. This is an important Rashi if you want to highlight it. Mikabalas dam. Dichsiv ikru b'nei Aaron v'armina b'taras kohanim v'ikrivu zu kabalas adam v'kiddush komets keneged arba avodos shel dam. When you do the komets by the mincha, there's 4 avodos by dam. What are the 4 avodos by dam? Shchita, kabbalah, holacha, and zrika. What's the 4 equivalents by a mincha? Kemitza. When you take the flour, that's the shchita. Then what? When you put it into the klishares, that's the kabbalah. You walk it to the mizbeach, and burning it is the equivalent. So you see that what? You see that putting it into the klishares is the equivalent of the kabbalah. So if you say you compare it to the beginning part of the mincha, where it could be on the floor, then this kometz can be put into a kli on the floor. But if you're comparing it to dam, then what do we know by dam? We know that by dam, when you do the kabbalah, the kohen needs to actually be holding the kli when the blood comes out of the animal's neck. So then there should have to be a kohen holding the kli when you do the kabbalah of the kometz, i.e. when you take the kometz and you put it into this second kli sharis. Says the Gemara, Hadar pashta, midam yalfinan la. You learn it from dam, and enechanami, there has to be a second, there has to be a kohen holding that second kli sharis. When Miyamar Rava Hachi, did Rava say this? Is it possible that Rava said it's like dam va'idmar komet shechalku b'shnei kelim? If you have a kometz that you take and you don't put in, forget about whether it's on the ground. Let's assume it's not on the ground, so it's kulei alma, nobody argues. But now you put it into 2 separate kli sharises. You split up the kometz into 2 kli sharises. Does that work or not? Rav Nachman amar eino kadosh. It doesn't work. Rava amar kadosh. Rava says it works. Says the Gemara, v'imisa leilaf midam. Well, how could it be? Make up your mind. Rava, if you hold that it's comparable to dam, we know that if you do the kabbalah of dam into 2 separate utensils, it doesn't work. You can't do into half here and half here and then mix them together. So why over here, if you're comparing it to dam, can you take the kemitza and put it into half here and half here? Says the Gemara, you're right. Says the Gemara, Hadar be Rava me'ahi. He's chozer on that last point, and he holds that the kemitza needs to be put into 1 kli, because you learn from dam. But enechnami, it comes out, again, according to Rava, what comes out here is that the first kli can be on the floor, but the second kli, which we're learning from dam, needs to be held by a kohen. So you have the kli on the floor, you bring it from your house, you put it on the floor, you take the kemitza out, a kosher kohen we're talking about, now you put it into a kli that's being held by another kohen. It needs to be held by another kohen because it's the equivalent of the kabbalah, and the kabbalah needs to be done by a kohen in his hand. Says the Gemara, midam minalan de lo kadosh lechatzan. Well, this is all assuming that dam is not kadosh if you accept it into 2 different kelim. Well, who said you can't accept dam into 2 different kelim? What's that based on? Again, we're comparing it to dam. Well, again, the dam, we already know that it has to be held. So for sure, this kli sharis has to be held. But we were saying that the second part of Rava, that it can't be put into 2 different kelim, the komets, is based on the fact that dam can't be put into 2 different kelim. Where do we know that dam can't be put into 2 different kelim? We had this Gemara in Zvachim, for those that remember. For those that don't remember, should be chazering. Says the Gemara, V'dam milalan de lo kiddush l'chatzan, and those who weren't here for Zvachim have an excuse. V'dam milalan de lo kiddush l'chatzan, detani Rav Tachlifa ben Shaul, kiddush pachos midei adal b'klizeh, pachos midei adal b'klizeh, lo kiddush. Now we have another thing. Again, we're learning a lot of things today. This is hazah by the paraduma. When you prepare the water with the ash of the paraduma, you can't prepare, let's say you need a liter. You can't prepare half a liter in 1 cup and then put in the ashes, and half a liter in another cup and then mix them together to make a liter and then dip the azov, the hyssop in. You have to make it all together. Who cares? What does it have to do with anything? Well, says Gemara, V'barilahu b'damai. What's the story with dam? Do we make a comparison from paraduma to dam? Why would we make a comparison? Maybe by paraduma, this is a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, and therefore we can't learn it to dam. Or we can make exeris akasa. What does it say by there? How do you know that by the hazah, that by the paraduma, you need to do it 1 time into 1 liter bottle? Because it says v'taval b'mayim. What's v'taval b'mayim? V'taval b'hamayim. That's what b'mayim means. In Hebrew, b'mayim means b'hamayim, the water. The water that was 1 the entire time. Here it says v'taval badam, behadam, in the dam that was 1 from the time that you got it during the Kabbalah Sadam. It's not halacha l'Moshe Sinai by hazah. We learned it from the word, and therefore you can learn it from dam as well. And that's how you know that just like by hazah, it can't be done in 2 different things, so too by dam. So really, if I ask you, how do you know that dam needs to be put into 1 kli? It's from the word of the pasuk, v'taval badam, behadam that came in one kli from the beginning. Amar Rav Tani nami hachi, this brisa we had. V'taval, there's three things we're going to learn. V'taval v'lo maspig. We said that when you do by the dam and you want to do the zrika, you have to put your finger in. You can't go around the edge and just take a little bit of blood. If you remember from Zvachin, you got to put your finger in, take it out, and then do the zrika. That's one. Badam, sheyehei badam shir tefila meikar. That was our limud here. That behadam, it has to have the right amount from the beginning. Min hadam shebe'inyan. And from the dam, it has to be the dam sheminyan. We're going to explain what that means in 1 second. V'yitzrech lemechta v'taval v'yitzrech lemechta badam. V'ikas rachmana v'taval havamina v'gav delokibel shir tfilos meikaro kas rachmana badam. V'ikas rachmana badam havamina afilu maspig kas rachmana v'taval. Like we just said, you need both of those things. You need v'taval badam. It has to be collected the entire thing at once in one kli. And the other one is telling me that you have to go ahead. V'taval, I'm sorry, that it has to be, you have to stick your finger in, you can't take it from the outside. And badam, the whole thing has to be one. What's this last part? When we say v'taval badam min hadam, what's min hadam shebe'inyan? L'ma'ute, what's that excluding? Amar v'lema'ute shirayim shebe'etzba. What's that last limud? The last limud is the shirayim shebe'etzba. What does that mean? You dip your finger, you do the zrika. You have some blood left on your finger. So what do you have to do? So it's saying, badam, you have to go ahead and you have to wipe it off. You can't go ahead and do another zrika, and you can't even go ahead, seemingly, as we'll see, and dip it in again. You have to wipe it off. Where are you going to wipe it? Yeah, not in your mouth. You're going to wipe it on the side of the bowl. As we'll see, you put it on the side of the bowl. If you remember, we had this discussion again in Zvachim where they're talking about maybe wiping it on the actual cow, but you wipe it on the side of the bowl, and then you go ahead and you dip the next time. And then what's the connection, or where do we see that this plays out? Who cares? Well, halach l'Moshe Sinai, not halach l'Moshe. I'm sorry. This is what's the nafkamina? Well, let's say it outside for a second. If the shirayim becomes pasul as soon as I'm done with it, it means I can't use it again. But that also means that it loses its potency to ruin things. What does that mean in English? I go ahead and I dip. I throw the blood. As soon as I finish, if that's kosher, that means it's still got its full potency.
What's on your finger? On
your finger, I could do it again. But what's the nafkamina? Well, we said that if blood gets onto somebody's garment, it's going to ruin it. It has to be washed. Well, if blood that's potent gets onto your garment, you have to wash it. If blood that's just leftovers, which is pasul to use again, gets on your garment, then I don't have to wash it. So if I say that when I dip in, the leftovers is still potent, then I'm going to say anytime I dip and throw, anytime throughout the process, even when I'm on the way back, i.e. my finger on the way back, if it gets blood anywhere, it's going to ruin whatever it gets on. But if I say that once I throw it, the leftovers is no longer potent, then now when I go ahead and I'm on the way back, before I wipe it off, if it gets on somebody's garment, I'm not going to have to wash it because that's just leftover blood, which is pasul. That's what the Gemara says. And we learned that again, min hadam shebe'inyan, that the leftover blood is pasul, and therefore the leftover blood will by definition not ruin a garment that it gets onto, because since it can't be used for the zrika, it's leftover blood and it can't ruin anything. Hayamazev and nitze hazam miyado. So in the beginning, the Gemara is going to first understand. You put your finger in and then it splatters. Imachalo hiza taon kibus, misha hiza ein taon kibus. From the time that you did it, the hazah, then the thing needs to be washed. If you didn't do that, once you did, you don't need kibbutz. So the Gemara originally understands that when it says that the blood can ruin your garment until you finish, it's not talking about finishing one time, till you finish all 7 times. Assuming that the leftovers is potent, you can reuse the leftovers, and therefore if it gets on your garment anytime in the process, it's going to ruin it. That would show that shirayim is kosher. Shirayim is potent, not like we were saying. Says Gemara, no, you're understanding it wrong. Lo achalo yatzta lo achalo yatzta miyado hazah taon kibus mishayatza mihazah miyado v'nitza mimashanish ein taon kibus. No, what it meant was until you do it once. Once you do it once, it's no longer potent. If it's no longer potent and it gets on somebody's garment on the way back, then it's not going to ruin it. Esve Abaye. So Abaye asks a kasha. Gomer milahazos mekaneach yada begufa shalpara. Gomer in lo, gomer lo. When you're done with all the hazos, you wipe your hand on the par to clean it off. They didn't have towels, so they used the par. What does that show, though? Only when you were done with all the hazos, you wiped your hand. Why didn't you wipe it in between each one? Seemingly because you can reuse it. Says the Gemara, no. Amalei gomer mekaneach yada lo, gomer mekaneach etzbo. No, it doesn't mean. You only wiped your hand on the par at the end. But you had to go ahead and clean off your finger. Your entire hand you wiped at the end. Your finger, you wiped off in between each one. So it tells me that I go ahead and I wipe my hand on the par when I finish. What do I wipe my finger on? It doesn't say anything in the pasuk about wiping it on the par, and as we saw, again, if you remember, wiping it on the par wouldn't be pasha, because what would happen if you wiped it on the par in between? Your hand might not have any blood on it, but what is it going to have on it? It's going to have the hairs of the par. You're going to have a chatzitza. Skip the Gemara, 2 lines. Amar Abaye, Bisvat Mizrach. Like we mentioned, where do you wipe it? On the edge of the bowl. Kedichsiv ki purei zahav. So what do you do? So again, it comes out that based on this limud, which is again a little bit of a tangent, but based on this limud of min hadam sheb'inyan v'taval, it comes out that when you're doing the hazaz, so you dip. Again, we learned 3 things. You have to dip in between each one. You dip in between each one. Fari, from the beginning. When you have the shchita, the first thing that we learned, badam, which is what we got into the whole discussion, you have to collect it into 1 kli. Then when you go at vitaval, each time you need to dip. You can't get it from the outside. And the third thing that we learned is that you can't use the leftovers. In between each hazah, you have to take the leftovers and you have to wipe it on the outside of the bowl and then dip again. And therefore, again, after you do the hazah, the nafkamina is that after you do the hazah, if any blood gets on after you already did this hazah, on the way back or anything, some of the blood gets on, it's not going to ruin the guy's garment because that's already considered to be leftover blood. Says the Gemara, Umi Amar Rabbi Elazar Hachi. Did Rabbi Elazar really say this? Did Rabbi Elazar really say that by dam you can't be mekadesh lechatzan? Did he really say that by dam you can't collect it half in this bowl and half in this bowl? Says the Gemara, understand, Idmar Chavite, Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Gadol used to have to bring a minchas chavitin. It's called chavitin because it was a shallow pan. Machavat is shallow. It was a shallow pan, asirit ha'ifa, every day. And we know Rabbi Yochanan Amar Eina kedusha lechatzan, that if he put half of it was an isaron of flour. Isaron efa flour. If you put half of an isaron, which would be half of 1/10, a 20th. If you put a 20th here and a 20th here, then lemaisa it would not be good. Rabbi Elazar Mitosha Kirva Lachatzain Kedusha Lachatzain. Rabbi Elazar says, what are you talking about? What does he use this efa for? What does he use this asirit haifa for? He uses half of it in the morning and half of it at night. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, it doesn't matter. You put it into 1 kli, machavat, and then you split it up half in the morning and half at night. You're makravit. According to Rabbi Elazar, what do you mean? If you're already offering half in the morning and half at night, so if you want, you could be offering, you could put it in put half of it in 1 kli and half of it in the other kli. Says the Gemara, we're just going to end here because it's a whole new sugya. Says the Gemara, Vim isa leilaf midam. And if it's true, then you should learn from dam. What does it mean? If it's true, you should learn from dam. Vim isa dedam lo kiddush lechatzon. If you really say, if you hold that Rabbi Elazar feels that by dam you can't go ahead and split it up into 2 kalim, so why does Rabbi Elazar say that over there by the minchas chavitin you could split it up into 2 different kalim? Why doesn't he go ahead and learn from dam and say just like by dam you can't split it into 2 kalim, you can't split into 2 kalim by minchas chavitin either? So the Gemara is suggesting at this point maybe Rabbi Elazar doesn't hold by dam it's a problem. Maybe he really holds by dam you could put it into 2 different things. And therefore, since you could put it by 2 different things by dam, you could put it by 2 different things by the minchas chavitin as well. We'll have to come back tomorrow to see what the Gemara says. Shkayach, everyone.